Welcome to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. Through storytelling and conversational interviews, this weekly radio show offers listeners firsthand insight into starting and running a business, the ups and downs of risk-taking, and the commonalities of successful people. Connect with Kerry through her candid, often funny, and informative weekly blog, where you'll read and can comment on life as wife, mother, daughter, and entrepreneur. And now it's time for Kerry McCoy to get all up in your business.
Thank you, Chris. Like Chris said, I'm Kerry McCoy, and it's time for me to get up in your business. Before we start, I want to introduce the people at the table. We have who you just heard from, Chris Cannon, my co-host, who will be managing the board and taking your calls. Say hello, Chris.
Hi.
And recording this show to make a podcast available next week is our technician, Jason Malik from Arise Studios in Conway, Arkansas. If right now you're sitting at your computer, you might want to watch us live on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page. Matthew, are we live?
No.
Oh, no, you don't want to watch us. How far away are we from being live on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page? I don't know. 5 minutes? Okay.
That's okay.
It will be ready
will.
shortly, and I have to take responsibility for that. I was very late getting here, so my technicians didn't have time to get it together, so I can't be mad at them. As you notice, I'm being really nice. But anyway, when it is live, it's fun to watch what goes on behind the scenes because there's always something fun going on behind the scenes. And if you know me, I'm kind of a funny person, aren't I, Ryan?
You're hilarious, actually. I would describe you as a laugh a minute, in fact.
Oh, there you go. If for some reason you miss any part of today's show or want to hear it again, there's a way, and Chris is going to tell you how.
Listen to all UIYB past and present interviews by going to flagandbanner.com and then click on Radio Show. Also, by joining our email list or liking us on Facebook, you'll get a reminder notification the day of the show with a sneak peek of that day's guest. Back to you, Kerry.
Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy began as a platform for me, a small business owner and a guest, to pay forward our experiential knowledge in a conversational way. Originally, my team thought, and I thought, it would appeal to entrepreneurs and wannabe entrepreneurs, but it seems to have had a wider audience appeal because, after all, who isn't inspired by everyday people's American-made stories? And there are a lot of them out there. To see people in their totality is humanizing. We all thirst to connect and make sense of an overcomplicated world. And on this show, we have the luxury of time to go deeper than a soundbite or a headline. It's no secret that successful people work hard, but another common trait found in many of my guests are the heart of a teacher, belief in a higher power, and creativity, because business is creative. And my gosh, my guest's business today is so creative in so many ways, on so many levels. My guest today is Ryan Harris, Executive Director and Programming Director for Oxford American Literary Project. This nonprofit is the brainchild of Mr. Warwick Sabin, who, by the way, is currently running for mayor in the November election and has been on the show before, and who was once the publisher of Oxford American Magazine. Warwick, a New York transplant, loves the Southern culture, as he told us on the show, and decided he wanted to highlight the South in a more all-encompassing way than just with his magazine. So he applied and received a grant for his vision, partnered with Amy and Matt Bell to open South on Main Restaurant, and hired the successful, well-known Mr. Ryan Harris from St. Louis, Missouri, to open and found his brainchild, the nonprofit Oxford American Literary Project. Because of Ryan Harris's reputation and good work as Director of Facilities and Events at another nonprofit for the arts, the Sheldon Concert Hall and Art Galleries, Warwick sought him and hired him. It was 2013 when Ryan moved to Little Rock, Arkansas, and the rest is history. Through Oxford American Literary Project, Ryan has successfully built an organization that celebrates and supports Southern artists of all genres. He has implemented the Oxford American Jeff Baskin Winters Fellowship Grant and offers UCA students internships at the OA magazine. Co-worker and once publisher of Oxford American Magazine, Ray Wittenberg, says about Ryan, Ryan has made a significant contribution to the cultural quality of life here in our community with his work as program director. It is a pleasure to welcome to the table the hardworking and well-respected Mr. Ryan Harris and my friend. Thank you for coming on, Ryan.
Kerry, thank you so much. That's a heck of an introduction there.
I told you I could do your eulogy.
I guess you could. And I told you, let's go ahead and contract that in right now. Of course, I don't know if you'll be here for my eulogy, but...
What was that? Oh, just because I'm older than you? What an age. Oh, beep, beep, beep.
I just wanted to get this interview started off on the right foot.
You did.
Which is going to be back and forth bantering.
Reckless.
And reckless. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So you're from St. Louis, Missouri. Were you born there?
I was not, actually. I was born in Nashua, New Hampshire, of all places, but lived most of my life in St. Louis.
And I don't know why I feel like this, and this may be so far off, but I feel like your mother must have been a school teacher.
My mother was not a school teacher.
I don't know why I think that about you.
My mother-in-law was a school teacher, though.
Your mother what? Your mother-in-law?
My mother-in-law was a school teacher.
You just seem like a protege of a mother who was a school teacher because you got good work ethic.
Maybe it's that Catholic guilt or something. Growing up in St. Louis, you got a Catholic church on every corner.
Is that right?
Oh, absolutely.
So you went to school, Olin School of Business at Washington University.
I did.
So I have to say this story about Ryan just a minute ago. So I called him today because the radio station, its transformer was, I guess, struck by lightning, and they're out there on the tower working on it. So we weren't going to be able to go live today on the radio. So I called Ryan and said, "Do you want to go ahead? We'll be live on Facebook. We'll be able to make a podcast. We can play it on another day. Do you want to go ahead today?" And he said, "Kerry." When I called him, he answered the phone and said, "Kerry, I have talked to your staff so many times this week. I feel like I'm on the payroll over there." And I said, "Ryan, I have studied so much about you. I feel like I could do your eulogy. So back at you." So anyway, you went to school at Olin School of Business at Washington University. You got a BS, BA, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. You came out of school and were a financial advisor at Equity Financial Services selling insurance. That does not sound like you. Talk to me about that.
Well, it's interesting. First of all, I'm kind of curious where you got all this information. I didn't know it was widely available out there.
There's a lot about you online.
Interesting. So I was a total sellout. I went to business school at WashU and had degrees in marketing and HR and worked for a money management firm, actually, right out of school. Had been doing an internship with these guys for a couple of years and thought that I enjoyed the work and the lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. And boy, I tell you, 2006 was a tough year for a young person to be starting in the financial services industry. So, had some minor success, but ultimately, with everything happening in 2007 and 8 with the markets, it just wasn't the right fit for me and couldn't stomach all the ups and downs. So. Yeah. Parallel with that, though, at the time, I had started, learning to produce and
produce what? Music?
Learning to produce arts events.
Oh, arts events.
And so, with a mentor, now a mentor of mine, but a former professor of mine from WashU named Rich O'Donnell.
Is that the new music circle?
Yeah. So Rich has had a profound impact on my life, but kind of parallel with my time starting in financial services, I started working with Rich in this small grassroots arts organization called New Music Circle, and really cut my teeth learning how to contract artists, produce shows, all the advanced work and liaising that goes into, making a live experience, whether that's a concert or a poetry event or video.
You liked it. You liked it. You're passionate about it.
Yeah. So I loved it, and had been doing that while I was trying to build the whole financial services thing, and sort of realized at the end of 2008, well, this financial services thing isn't working, but I really love this, this arts management thing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
That's hard work. So you work all day at one job, and you work all night at your other job, and you see which one plays out. And it obviously was the music one. And so, but it must not have been making you very much money because you went from there to, the Sheldon Arts Foundation. How did you make the leap from New Music Circle to Sheldon Arts Foundation?
Yeah, so that's a funny story too. So, New Music Circle was sort of just a part-time, side gig, doing it for the love of it, getting paid a little bit of money. But, quit my job in finance late 2008 and was looking for jobs, looking for internships. I had run a grass cutting business for years. And so, was cutting grass and things, just scraping by, trying to figure out how can I land in the arts? How can I find a job here in St. Louis doing something like this? And so I applied for an internship with the Sheldon Arts Foundation for marketing, and was lucky enough that they sort of pulled my resume out of obscurity and said,
Really?
"Wow, this looks great." Unfortunately, we've filled this marketing internship position though. I said, "Oh well, it's too bad." They said, "Well, but we do have another position that's opened up." I said, "Well, what's that?" I said, "A receptionist." I said, "Oh, and how much does that pay?" I said, "Well, it's a volunteer position, but you'll get down here and you'll get to meet all of us, and it'll be a really good experience." So I swallowed my pride, 2 years out of school and money management licenses and a business degree from WashU, and I went and started answering the phones for free at the Sheldon, and did that for about 3 months. And right when I was at my breaking point and decided, I need to do something with my life here, they said, "Hey, we just had a job open up and we really want you to apply for it." And so they gave me a shot, and I ended up getting hired onto their operations team. Started managing the building and running the bar actually, and worked my way up. And over 4 years, basically, by the time I left the Sheldon, was the operations director. And so really learned, how to, produce arts events, but also private events and visual arts events at a high level there. Sheldon is a nonprofit. They have, over 350 events a year.
It's only 356 days in a year.
Well, we had, some years we had 400 events. So it was a nonprofit. It's a building built in 1912, not unlike
The Dreamland Ballroom.
Very similar architecturally to the Dreamland Ballroom. And so, the Sheldon was this beautiful space that was built by the Ethical Society, and did, nationally touring concerts in jazz, folk, classical genres.
You like all music, don't you?
I do.
You know who said to do exactly the career path that you just described was Warren Buffett, when he was talking to a group of people at Harvard, and they were a bunch of business graduates, and they were graduating, and someone said, "How do you get a job at the place that you want to work? We're all about to graduate. How do we get the job at we want to work?" And he said, he said, the first way to get a job is don't go for money, but go for, research the company you want to work for, and then get a job there, even if it's sweeping floors, and work your way up.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did.
Well, hard workers are recognized.
Yeah.
If you're a hard worker and you're dependable, you'll be recognized and rewarded and moved up, just exactly like what happened to you.
Yeah.
So Oxford America came to see you, or you came to see them?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story. Also.
You want to save it for after the break? Let's save it for after the break.
Sure, we can save it after the break.
All right. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Mr. Ryan Harris, Executive Director and Program Director for Oxford American Literary Project in Little Rock, Arkansas. In this next segment, we'll dissect the sordid history of Oxford American Magazine's 4-time fall and rise from bankruptcy to solvency. We'll talk about how Ryan interviewed and got the position and moved to Little Rock. And we'll talk about his passion, music, and the bands he's booked and heard in St. Louis, and his current haunt at South on Main Restaurant. And last, we'll learn about his nonprofit's internship opportunities through UCA and his Jeff Baskin Writers Fellowship grant. Want to create excitement for your business or event? Do it with affordable advertising from Arkansas's flagandbanner.com. We have teardrop banners, retractable banners, and table drapes. We have street pole banners, museum and exhibit banners. We have custom flags, event tents, tailgating poles, auto graphics, and window scrim. And don't forget, welcome home and sale banners. Consult the experts at Arkansas's flagandbanner.com. Go online for a free quote or drop by our historic showroom at 800 West 9th Street in Little Rock.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. Over 40 years ago, with only $400, Kerry founded Arkansas Flag and Banner. During the last 4 decades, the business has grown and changed, starting with door-to-door sales, then telemarketing, to mail order and catalog sales. And now 1/3 of their sales come through the internet. And this past year, Flag and Banner added another internet feature, live chatting. Over time, Kerry's business and leadership knowledge grew, As early as 2004, she began sharing this knowledge in her weekly blog. In 2009, she founded the nonprofit Friends of Dreamland Ballroom, and in 2014, Brave Magazine was launched, whose next publication is slated for October 2018. Today, she has branched out into radio with this very production, podcast, and live stream on Facebook. Each week on this show, you'll hear candid conversations between her and her guest about real-world experiences on a variety of businesses and topics that we hope you'll find interesting and inspiring. If you'd like to ask Kerry a question or share your story, send an email to questions@upyourbusiness.org. That's questions with an S at upyourbusiness.org, or send her a message on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Mr. Ryan Harris, Executive Director and Program Director for the nonprofit Oxford American Literary Project in Little Rock, Arkansas, an outreach program that, in conjunction with UCA, South on Main Restaurant, and Oxford American Magazine, supports and celebrates regional, mostly Southern musicians, writers, and visual artists. Before the break, we talked about how Ryan came from St. Louis, how he has a degree in business, and he just happened to graduate from school right about the 2008 crisis. So, that degree in business wasn't very good. So he followed his passion and began working as a free receptionist at the Sheldon Arts Museum, and later worked his way up the ladder to where you became what did you become? The
Director of events operations or something.
Facilities and events.
Yeah, and event
That's
operations.
Right. Director
That's right.
of Facility and Events at the Sheldon Arts Center. And then he did such a great job that when Oxford American Magazine publisher Warwick Sabin decided he wanted to branch out from his from just talking about the South and supporting the South and celebrating the South and the Southern culture, he decided he wanted to start this nonprofit. He went and hired Ryan, who moved from St. Louis to Little Rock. How did that come to be?
Sure. So, interestingly, the reason that I was ultimately in Little Rock is because of my wife.
Oh, is she from Little Rock?
She is from Little Rock.
Oh.
Yeah, we had met in St. Louis shortly before she was taking a job back here. She lived in St. Louis for 8 or 9 years, and so she was hired in 2011 to come back to Little Rock, and so we dated long distance for a while, and ultimately I decided that I was gonna.
And you got to follow her. She's a doctor.
That's right. Yeah.
She's a medical doctor. You got to follow that career.
Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah.
You work too hard to get that degree. You got to follow it around. Now, how many years you have to go to school? Like 10?
Yeah, way too many. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was done after 4.
Yeah.
At any rate, so I moved down here in February 2013 to follow her, and was just lucky enough to kind of be needing a job in Little Rock right around the time when the Oxford American had made this decision to,
start a nonprofit.
They started the nonprofit earlier. So the nonprofit was officially incorporated in 2004, but the venue part, the whole South on Main thing was something that happened in 2012 through an Art Place America grant. So essentially, the OA won this creative placemaking grant through an organization called Art Place America to take the space that's now South on Main, do a big rehab of it, and turn it into a place where people could come and experience, have an Oxford American experience. And so I was hired to be the program director of South on Main to help the magazine realize its idea, its vision, and its obligation to come through and create this space due to this grant that we got.
Obligation, that's right. Because in 2004 it was the nonprofit. Why would they have a nonprofit in 2004? Is it published by the nonprofit and written by the for-profit?
No. So interestingly, the magazine was founded in 1992 as a for-profit in Oxford, Mississippi, and then it. I think, as you've noted or alluded to, had a series of financial problems over the years. But eventually in 2000 or 2001, it was sold to a media group in Little Rock.
At Home, Arkansas.
Yeah, at Home, Arkansas. And they ran it for a year or two, and it wasn't really working out. And so it went out of business again. and then was revitalized in 2004, and at that time affiliated with UCA and incorporated as a nonprofit.
Oh, I get it. That's why they had to be a nonprofit. For UCA to get involved, they had to have part of it as a nonprofit.
Exactly, and so that's when we really beefed up, sort of the educational side of things. And
that's very creative. That's very creative. All right, let's just tell our listeners the story, the history, because I love how Oxford American Magazine started in 1989. A man named Mark Smirnoff, like vodka. And Smirnoff vodka? I think it's gluten-free, too, just FYI.
Yeah.
I know, and I don't know why it doesn't advertise that.
Because that's a great question. You know what? Maybe you should start Flag and Banner vodka.
No, I mean, Tito's is really charging the money for gluten-free vodka, and Smirnoff is naturally gluten-free and it's cheap, and they don't even tell anybody.
I would assume it all is distilled from potatoes.
No, it's
isn't
all
it?
from wheat. Even the real expensive stuff's been gone wheat.
Oh, really?
All that expensive vodka is made from wheat.
Shows what I know.
Well, it's because you're not gluten-free. But anyway, so in 1989 in Oxford, Mississippi, Mark Smirnoff, like the vodka, was on a road trip. He's from California, a suburb outside of San Francisco, and his BMW broke down in Oxford, Mississippi on this cross-country excursion. They probably in 1987 couldn't get parts. I don't know why, but he ended up staying there and working at a bookstore, an independent little bookstore called Square Books. And oddly enough, John Grisham, the guy who's written bestsellers year after year, lived in Oxford, Mississippi. And this little bookstore had a lot of really important writers coming through there. And this guy, Mark Smirnoff, got the idea to start a magazine about the South.
So the story goes. I mean, obviously I wasn't there, but the way it's been told to me is essentially what you said. And there's this great community of writers in Oxford at the time who were having to send their work elsewhere to potentially get published, mostly to New York, which remains obviously sort of the literary capital of the country today. But they sort of got together and on a shoestring said, gosh, why don't we start our own magazine? So they did. And
because there was the Atlantic Monthly, which talked about Atlanta. And then there was the New Yorker, which talked about New York. But there was nothing that was really about the South. And so he wanted to make it a little bit broader and more Southern.
Yeah, I mean, I think a general interest magazine, but focused on the South. And, I think his original artist statement, sort of, or vision statement sort of, doesn't necessarily say it had to be, or the idea wasn't necessarily that it was focused on the South as much as it just so happens that this is happening in the South. But, over the years, that vision has evolved, and what we've really, obviously come to be known for is this, organization that has empowered hundreds of artists and helped launch and sustain the careers of many now significant Southern writers, artists, visual artists, and musicians.
What a great legacy.
Yeah, it's really special to be a part of that. I mean, I fully acknowledge I've been with the organization 5 years now, and there's this huge legacy and brand that was built during this 20 years prior to my involvement. And I'm just really grateful to be a part of that. And again, I think that what we do is really important, or it's very much
nobody's doing it.
I feel lucky. There are other people doing it, but I feel very lucky to be in a position where essentially my job is to help empower these creative voices, these people who are shaping the cultural legacy of the region for years to come.
Southern Living magazine is more of a woman's magazine. This is more of a writer's magazine.
Yeah, it's more of a writer's magazine, more of an artistic magazine. I would say, unlike maybe a commercial publication, we, have always kind of been focused on the content first, because we're not trying to run a for-profit business that essentially exists to sell advertising to niche marketers.
Well, maybe you should. If going belly up for a time, you should maybe change your idea on that.
Yeah, maybe that is part of the problem.
Everything's for-profit is a negative word, because
it's not a negative word, but what I'm saying is the fact that we're nonprofit allows us, I think, the flexibility to focus on content first, rather than, gosh, we need to cater to a certain profile because we know that we're going to be able to sell those ads to X, Y, and Z. And so maybe unlike some of those other titles that you talked about, we have been maybe a little bit more authentic and genuine to what, some of the complex social, economic, racial, challenges have been that have faced the South and have confronted those head on, rather than sort of presenting this idealized, romanticized version of the South with gingham tablecloths and iced tea sitting on the front porch.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. All right, so listen, the debut was 1992. He got all these writers for free, these paid professional pro writers to write for free articles. He put it in his magazine, and he launched it in 1992. He did it with his credit card. He launched it with money off his credit card, which is a lot of small businesses do. And he also did it with a bunch of his friends, which I think is friends and family and credit cards, I think is a great way to start a small business. Mm-hmm. I think that is, I'd rather do that than a bank. And you often hear that. If you go to the SBA, they'll say, go to your friends and family and credit cards first.
Interesting.
I know. He also had the cover of the magazine was done by a local artist, I think, for free. But it was only published for 2 years because in 1994, it didn't have enough funding. Mm-hmm. And probably no one wanted to keep writing for free.
Probably not.
And artists have a problem about selling ads. About sales. Let's just say that about sales. They want to create instead of doing the sales part.
Different way of thinking.
It's a different way of thinking. So it stopped in 1994. So count. That's the first time it came up and went down. Okay, the second time was a year later, and John Grisham, who we talked about a few minutes ago, who lived in Oxford, couldn't stand it. He decided to put his own money in and resurrected it.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I wasn't there, but John I became the first publisher, I guess, at that point. And so there's actually a great letter from him a letter from the publisher that's appeared in one of those early issues, and just saying something to the effect of, Mark Smirnoff asked me to be the publisher of the Oxford American, and I agreed. And then I said, well, what does a publisher actually do? What am I supposed to do? And so it was this kind of
you're the man with the money.
Yeah, kind of quirky, kind, self-aware joke about, well, I got myself into this, not really sure what it is. But yeah, my understanding is that he, Grisham provided a lot of financial backing for a number of years. And there was, some strategy around serializing some of his books and releasing them piecemeal in the Oxford American. And at that time, I think some of the strategy or some of the...
the Painted House, right, which is actually about Arkansas.
Some of the advice was, well, gosh, we need to, really up the circulation on this thing. Let's get it on every grocery store, newsstand in the country. And so they were printing tons and tons of copies. And
that'll make you go bankrupt fast.
Yeah. And so
Smirnoff's still the editor.
Yep.
And Grisham's now the money man.
That's my understanding.
And they're doing a book. They're going to, like you said, do snippets out of his or short stories about teasers out of the books that he's writing.
Right.
And the one he did was The Painted House, which I thought was about Arkansas, which I read, which was good. And I don't even read, and I read it, and it was good. That was okay. But after he pulled the plug on that in 2000. So he did it 5 years. He said, this is a hole where all my money goes.
Yep.
Like the song. And that's okay. That's one. That's two. That's two resurrections and two downs. Now third. 2 years later, it comes to Little Rock. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it was in conjunction with At Home Arkansas. And they tried to do it, but insufficient advertising revenue. And they sell for a living. They have a staff that sells. Why is it hard to sell ads in Oxford, America?
That's a great question.
American.
I wish I knew the answer to it. I mean, I think because, part of it is because it's very niche. It's relatively small circulation, right?
How many? What is the circulation?
Currently, it's about 20,000 copies for the non-music issues and 50,000 for the music issue. So,
and people pay for those, right? It's not a free publication.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's a newsstand price is $10.95.
So it's an expensive magazine.
Sure.
But it's almost books. There's how many articles are in it?
Yeah, the way we look at it is, good writing and good art are worth paying for. And
I agree.
We are we are compared to and are sort of in the same league as other magazines like the New Yorker and
how much
like
does
the
it
Atlantic.
cost?
I couldn't tell you what the exact
You don't know what
newsstand
your
price is
competition's
now,
paying.
but it's over $10 an issue. Mm-hmm. So, getting back to your question, why is it difficult to sell ads for the Oxford American? I wish I knew the answer to that, other than, the circulation's relatively low, and what we do again is very niche. It's done on a high quality level. It's very much about the quality of the writing and the art, and it's not marketing driven first. It's sort of it's sort of editorially driven first.
Yeah.
And so,
which is why it was good that in 2000. So again, third time down, third resurrection. Third, they decide, At Home group of magazines decides to stop in 2003. And in 2004, it is turned into a nonprofit, which I think is perfect. And UCA comes in and gives it the revitalization it needs. Moves it to the Conway campus.
Yeah, so they were I guess in the old main building for a while up there. And then a few years after that, we moved to a house off campus for a while, but we've essentially had an ongoing affiliation with UCA since 2004. And
so now they're doing great. You're doing great. It's 2004. This is the one. This is why this could be a Netflix series. I swear it could be, because in 2008, are y'all sitting down? The business secretary, is caught embezzling money.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? They're solvent. They're doing good. She's not paying the corporate taxes, and she embezzles money for about a year. She pleads guilty, goes to jail, supposed to give the money back, but it's going to be just like OJ. You're never going to see a dime, because she's going to be like, cash only, pay me cash only for everything. Am I wrong? Has she paid any money, or do you know?
I can't comment on that.
Oh, yeah, you can. Okay, so UCA saves the day again.
Yep.
And they restructure. And they take the current publisher and replace him with Warwick Sabin, who is already on the payroll at the University of Arkansas as a spokesperson. And he's doing such a good job as a spokesperson. They say, come in and save Oxford Magazine. And he said, Warwick, he's like, okay.
Yeah, so again, I don't know all the details of it, but my understanding is for several years he worked for free as a publisher.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not. I mean, he was. Again, I could be wrong at this, but I believe
he was
he was
passionate that work over there.
He was sort of working full time at UCA, and then part of his responsibility became, or his time was sort of spent running the OA and doing that, and so. Yeah, he certainly was key in building a new board, and I think putting some structure in place that hadn't been there. And
a mystery donor shows up around this time and gives the OA $100,000, and I can guess who that was.
Yeah, to pay back the taxes
to get him out of the IRS debt.
Yep. We were very fortunate about that.
Okay, here's another one, and you don't have to talk very much about this. So here we are, right before Ryan's about to come to work. You're just about to come to work for Oxford America, and the guy that we've been talking about, Mark Smirnoff, has a disgruntled employee that quits and slaps a sexual harassment case on him.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, it's a Netflix miniseries.
Maybe you should produce it, Kerry.
No, because I'll just tell it, because the producing, we just learned, and publishing costs money. I'll just tell it because I have researched it. It's a convoluted story. So you get the sexual harassment case against Mark Smirnoff and his managing editor, Carol Ann Fitzgerald.
Yeah. So what I know is basically what's known publicly and what's been written publicly, but that's you've said it as I understand, and
he denies it.
That was very that made national news, and there's an article in the New York Times, and it was a very traumatic moment for the organization, not only because the founding editor, who'd been with the organization 20 years and was, in many ways this big personality and this lifeblood that was determined to keep this thing going, all of a sudden was out. Yeah. And so, I think there was a lot of publicity around that was generated by Smirnoff that was sort of bashing the regime. And, it was this moment, I think this pivotal moment where people, writers had lost their confidence on, well, gosh, can the OA exist without, without its founding editor and And lo and behold, we were fortunate that during that transition period, Roger Hodge was hired, who had formerly been the editor of Harper's Magazine in New York.
Oh, really?
And so Roger brought a lot of stabilization. He redesigned the magazine, brought a lot of grace to it, and in many ways helped, again, move us toward professionalizing and consistency of the output and the writing and things like that.
Where did he live? Did he move here?
He did not. No, Roger was based in Brooklyn. So that was it's one of these interesting phenomena about business these days, especially things that could be done, remotely over the internet, is that when I started at the OA, we had employees or contractors or affiliates who were involved in making the magazine probably in 6 or 7 different locations around the country.
So this editor didn't move?
Editor didn't move, no.
Hodge stayed where he was?
Stayed where he was, but provided some great stabilization. You trained and hired some excellent young editors, brought them into the fold. And shortly after Hodge was hired, I was hired to come down and, so while kind of the magazine stuff was being stabilized and reimagined following Smirnoff's departure, we had also, had this vision and this obligation to follow through and open the venue space. So,
because you had already gotten the grant.
We had already gotten the grant, so there were a lot of moving pieces going on at that time. We had also not too much before then had started this video series called So Lost, which was shot and produced by a brilliant man named Dave Anderson, who lives here in Little Rock, that won a National Magazine Award. And so, Warwick really helped the OA expand its thinking and expand its, footprint as being more than a magazine and starting to be a multimedia, really just a media company that was leveraging the brand's equity and curatorial instincts and relationships to be existing in these other places, like a live event experience, like a video series. They'd done some radio things in conjunction with NPR, et cetera, et cetera.
That's wonderful. This is a great place to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Mr. Ryan Harris, Executive Director and Program Director of Oxford American Literary Project. We'll talk about his passion music and his jazz series. Isn't it called Jazz Series? What's your Thursday night called?
We just called it the concert series at South on Main.
The concert. We'll talk about his passion, the concert series, which is a music and bands that he's booked and heard in St. Louis and in Little Rock. And we'll be back after the break. But first, I want to remind everybody we're broadcasting live every Friday afternoon at 2 p.m. Central Time on KABF 88.3 FM, the voice of the people. I guess we're broadcasting live.
Well,
I don't know. I told everybody on Facebook earlier that we that the tower had been struck by lightning, so we may not be broadcasting live, but we are broadcasting live on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page, and that after 1 week of every show's airing, a podcast is made available, so anybody can go and see it later, and we will replay this again on the air on KABF. You can listen to it on the podcast on all popular listening sites and YouTube.
Boost morale and patriotism with a new flag or flagpole from Arkansas's flagandbanner.com. We have poles, hardware, accessories, maintenance support, installation, and custom flags. We have flags of all kinds. For the sports enthusiast, the world traveler, or history buff, we have them all. Bring in your old flag and get $5 off a new one. Consult the experts at Arkansas's flagandbanner.com. Come shop our historic location at 800 West 9th Street in Little Rock, or visit us online at flagandbanner.com.
Flagandbanner.com is proud to underwrite Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. This weekly radio show and podcast offers listeners firsthand insight into starting and running a business, the ups and downs of risk-taking, and the commonalities of successful people shared in a conversational interview with Kerry. Along with this radio show, flagandbanner.com publishes a free biannual magazine called Brave. First published in October 2014, this magazine features everyday people's real-life stories of bravery. Its goal? To inspire you to celebrate your own bravery and challenge you to recognize it in others. The Department of Arkansas Heritage recognized Brave Magazine's documentation of American life and microfiches all editions for the Arkansas State Archives. Brave Magazine will be in your mailbox and hitting newsstands October 2018. Free subscriptions and advertising opportunities are available at flagandbanner.com by selecting Magazine, where you can read previous stories and learn about advertising opportunities.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Mr. Ryan Harris, Executive Director and Program Director for Oxford American Literary Project in Little Rock, Arkansas, an outreach program that, in conjunction with UCA, South on Main Restaurant, and Oxford American Magazine, supports and celebrates regional, mostly Southern musicians, writers, and visual artists. We left off videographers you were just talking about.
Yeah, Dave Anderson.
Yeah.
So Lost series.
Yes, I want to take this opportunity to give a big shout out and a big thank you to Centennial Bank for partnering with the Friends of Dreamland Ballroom and sponsoring this year's Dancing into Dreamland, which is Friday, November the 2nd, and tickets and a few tables are still available online. Before the break, we talked about how you're a business major. Then we talked about the history of Oxford American Magazine and how it should be a Netflix series. It's really kind of crazy. And now we want to talk about Ryan Harris and how you said you came here because your wife was a doctor and she was coming here. So what about Oxford American sold you on the idea?
Yeah, so I'd been working at this concert hall the prior 4 or 5 years, and like I said, was just sort of in the right place at the right time, where the Oxford American was opening a new venue space and they needed somebody to program it. And what that actually meant was they needed somebody with operations experience.
And you were a facility and event operations person.
Yep.
Did you apply for the job or did he come and find you work?
How did that happen? Yeah, I applied for the job. I was introduced to Warwick by some colleagues that of my wife who knew him through Hendrix or something.
Oh, okay.
So I had coffee with him in late 2012, and he sort of told me what his vision was, and I said, "Well, yeah, I think I can do that. Here's what I've been doing the last 5 years, and on this level." And to be honest, I didn't think that I'd be a candidate for the job.
Why?
Because what was described was very, very programming heavy. And though I did have a little bit of, talent buying experience at the Sheldon, most of my job was operations. And so I was a little bit surprised when he said, "No, I'm considering you to be a serious candidate for this position." So I went ahead and applied and put a plan together, and was hired in late 2013 and then late 2012 and started in early 2013. But where was I going with all that, Kerry?
So did he throw out Ted Danson and Mary Steenburgen's names when he did that?
He did not, no.
Because I think, tell everybody how they're involved in this.
Sure. So Oxford American does not own South on Main. We helped create the space through a grant, through tenant improvements and things like that. Uh-huh. But our partners, Matt and Amy Bell, who operate the South on Main, the restaurant, they are family with Mary Steenburgen, who's of course married to Ted Danson, and so Mary and Ted became involved with the restaurant as investors. Yep, friends and family.
That's the best way.
So, yeah, the original vision for the space, programming, 7 nights a week, all this stuff, literary, music, film. Culinary, you name it. So as our mutual friend Kathleen King sometimes says, you gotta kind of turn on the hot water, the cold water to sort of get the temperature right. And so, we adjusted some things after it got started and have figured out, a way to kind of make South on Main work. It works best for, music events And given my background the prior few years, I was able to bring some relationships and some curatorial maybe sensibilities to bringing stuff to Little Rock that really wasn't appearing here previously, and being very careful to curate those experiences to what sort of the acoustical properties and the environment is in the room.
I've heard some great bands. How many people sit in this? How many is it able to see?
It's around 200.
It doesn't look that big.
And so I try to focus the Oxford American booking on what I would call, listening music. Little Rock really didn't have a proper listening room when I moved here. My understanding is the afterthought for years and years was kind of a listening experience, but it really wasn't doing a whole lot of national stuff when I moved here. And so we've been really fortunate, to have built an audience of appreciative music lovers over the last 5 years who enjoy coming and having this, really kind of intimate experience.
So the Dreamland Ballroom had a lot of greats play there because it was a stop on the touring Chitlin circuit because people drove. But
Absolutely.
Maybe people fly now, or do they still drive in their buses?
The majority of people drive.
So are we still the stop between New Orleans and St. Louis, New Orleans, Chicago, New Orleans, and Memphis? So you pick up a lot of good, because it seems like you have some really good talent there on Thursday nights.
Yeah. So there's an interesting conspiracy of circumstances that came together to kind of make this all possible. But the short of it is, geographically, you got to drive through Arkansas to get between Texas and Tennessee. So, many tours start.
Oh, Memphis.
Many tours start in Nashville. Texas is such a huge market. People can spend 2 weeks playing there. So, one or the other going and fromming.
Going and fromming.
That's good.
Going and fromming.
I think I'm going to do that tonight.
Try it, kids. Why don't you going and fromming? Brought to you by flagandbanner.com. So interestingly, we're able to grab some artists who are traveling through maybe to play bigger paying shows in bigger markets between Texas and Tennessee, or maybe between,
you've got some great stuff. So works, this has got to be, I didn't really know about the sexual harassment thing, about how big of a deal it was till I read about it. I knew it happened because I know all of y'all and I knew it happened, but Warwick Sabin leaving, I thought was a shocker to everybody. So you've been there about a year, and Warwick comes in and says,
not even a year.
Not even a year. He's hired
South
you.
South Main hadn't even opened yet.
Oh, has it not even opened yet?
No.
And he comes in and says, I've done my stint. I want to run for office. I'm going to resign as the editor. Tell us about that day.
Yeah, I don't think that I fully realized the impact of that situation at that point. It wasn't until a little bit later that I think I realized what that meant, because I was so new there and had been so head down, kind of on this other thing, getting this venue space going, literally meeting with contractors every day and getting the flooring done. So, Work had, he brought this vision that really, like I said, expanded the OA into a media company. And it was surprising to many of us that he left. And it was a big hole to fill. I mean, he's a very intelligent person. He's a brilliant fundraiser and knows a lot of people.
Well connected.
So, yeah.
I just want to take a real quick break and tell everybody you're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Mr. Ryan Harris, Executive Director and Program Director of the nonprofit Oxford American Literary Project in Little Rock, Arkansas, an outreach program that, in conjunction with UCA, South on Main Restaurant, and Oxford American Magazine, supports and celebrates regional musicians, writers, videographers, and visual artists. All right, so in walks the savior, Eliza Bournet, a 30-year-old, to fill Warwick Sabin's huge shoes.
Sort of. So is a slight correction there.
Okay.
So actually, Ray Wittenberg became the interim publisher.
That's right. I forgot.
After Warwick
and he
left.
had been that before.
He had been that before.
So he knew the role.
So Ray knew the role, and the board had Ray be the interim publisher for a while. But shortly thereafter, the editor, Roger Hodge, decided to resign because he was offered a new job working with a company called The Intercept in Brooklyn.
You've lost your core people. You've lost Roger, the editor. You've lost Warren, the publisher. You're brand new. You're thinking, I'm going down on the ship.
Yeah. Well, again, because I was so head down focused on this venue thing, I don't think I realized how big of a deal it was at the time. Looking back on it now, how crazy it was. Maybe I'm just not that smart, but at any rate, it was that was a very serious moment for the organization. There was some board restructuring that was done at the time, and like this phoenix rising from the ashes, it's really sort of the core group of people who really cared about the mission and about seeing the thing continue, that some of the younger, newer folks that Roger had brought in and me that really kind of
was Eliza already working there?
Yeah, so interestingly, Eliza Bournet and I started on the exact same day.
I didn't realize that.
She was hired either as an associate or assistant editor. She's a Little Rock native, but she had been working in Nashville for a company called Bookpage and had run into Roger Hodge at a conference. Hodge, chatted her up and discovered she had been an intern at the OA, like 5 or 6 years prior, and that she was from Little Rock. And so she sort of casually said, well, the only thing that would get me to move back to Little Rock would be working for the Oxford American. And so he hired her. So interestingly, Eliza and I didn't know each other. We lived in different parts of the country, but we started on the same day.
And then she left.
She did not leave.
She went to Nashville, I thought you said.
No. She was recruited from Nashville
on that day
to start working
on that day.
Yeah, to start working in Little Rock. So anyway, so she kind of worked her way up through the ranks on the editorial side, along with some other young folks who have now been with us 5-6 years that have just really had the passion and the commitment.
So she started as a writer?
No, an editor. Yeah, assistant or associate editor. I don't know what her official title was, but anyway, when Hodge leaves, she became the interim editor, and we did a national search for an editor, and interviewed several people, and ultimately the board decided that Eliza was the most qualified, best fit for where we were as an organization. And so in fall of 2015, she becomes the first female editor of the organization, and
30 years old,
the third editor in the organization's history. And she's done a brilliant job.
So her coworker is Jay Jennings, who is a rock star, really.
Jay is a rock star in many ways.
In many ways. He's done Sports Illustrated and tennis. He's the author of Kerry the Rock, Race Football, and the Soul of American City, about the Central High football team 50 years after the 1957 integration crisis, which was nationally acclaimed.
Sure.
He's worked in New York. He's done lots of things. And he's also a Little Rock native. Mm-hmm. And he says this about Eliza, which I just love her name, Eliza. It's such an old-fashioned name. He says, as a person who has worked for New York magazines for the past 20 years, I can say Eliza is the equal of any editor I've worked with. He continues to say, and I feel so lucky that this place where I can come and do what I love is just 5 blocks away from where I live in my own hometown.
Yeah. Yeah, having that kind of endorsement from Jay Jennings is a big deal. He's a prince of a guy. I've never met anybody who didn't instantly light up and say, "Oh, I love Jay Jennings." But more than that, he's a brilliant editor, and
he's her assistant editor or senior editor.
Yeah, so Jay's a senior editor. He's he's brought a lot of relationships, a lot of, again, sort of life experience to sort of the big picture of where the magazine goes, what place that it has in the literary and arts landscape nationally, and he's just been a wonderful advocate and I think mentor to many of us, myself included.
And it's interesting to me that you're right. It's like that Eagles song. Once you get there, you can never leave. What's that song?
Oh, you're talking about that line from Hotel California?
Yes.
You can check out anytime you like, but you can't never leave.
That is your... we practice that. That is the Oxford Americans motto to me. Because Ray is still there.
Yeah.
And he's been publisher now 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
Eliza came back.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have Smirnoff back before you know it. No. And think about John Grisham. He came back twice.
Did he?
Well, he did it first with Smirnoff, and then he came back and published it himself the second time.
Oh,
think about that.
That may or
No comment. All right.
Okay, no comment.
So Thursday music series.
Yeah.
What do you got planned? What's coming up?
Yeah, so believe it or not, this is our, I think, 5th season or 6th season. So we've been doing this six
How do people
falls
sign up
now.
and get involved and learn about it?
Visit oxfordamerican.org/events, and that'll show you all the events that we have, that we're doing here in Little Rock and or any place else in the country. And actually, we're about to announce 6 nights of events that we're doing in North Carolina.
What?
To accompany our North Carolina music issue. Yeah. So we'll be announcing that next week.
God, y'all are hard workers.
But
Arlo Guthrie?
yeah, so our gala this year, it's our biggest fundraiser, helps keep the lights on at the OA. We've got the legendary folky Arlo Guthrie coming to Little Rock.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. Arlo's wonderful.
What day is that?
It's Wednesday, November 7th. It's down at Ron Robinson Theater.
Great venue. So you sit down and watch him?
Yeah.
So it's a sit down, watch Arlo Guthrie on the stage. You don't have to dance for people that don't want to dance. You don't have to get up and sway.
No. So it'll be a pre-concert reception, but tickets are at oxfordamerican.
How much?
I'm sorry, tickets are at metrotix.com, but for more information, oxfordamerican.org/events.
You know how much they are?
Yeah, they're $200 for the orchestra level and $150 for the balcony.
That'd be a great night. What time's it start to? Because I like to do it early.
Doors open at 6 o'clock.
Good.
You got a reception for 2 hours, and then Arlo goes on stage at 8.
That's good. I don't like it when they start at 9. That's too late for
Yeah,
me.
it's bedtime.
Well, and Arlo's people are all bedtime people, too.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a bunch of 20-year-olds down there.
Yeah,
And they haven't got any money anyway.
What's that, 20-year-olds?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You want the older people that go to bed early and have the deep pockets.
The old folkies.
That's what you want. I love it. Thank you. I've enjoyed visiting with you so much.
Thank you, Carrie.
I love you. You know
and
I
as
do.
always, you're looking and sounding fabulous.
Well, thank you. Look what I have for you. A desk set.
Oh, Carrie
Arkansas,
McCoy.
U.S. And what's that?
Missouri.
Yeah.
Boy, you almost got me there for a second. I was like, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that in a minute. Oh, wait, I know that one.
I know he kind of had that deer in the headlights look when I said that. He was like, oh, she's fixing to bust me out on something. France. Who's my guest next week, Chris?
That's going to be P. Allen Smith, who is the current host of 2 television shows on PBS, P. Allen Smith's Garden Home and P. Allen Smith's Garden to Table.
I have been trying to get him for 2 years.
Yeah.
He's hard to pin down.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that about
he's
him?
A big deal. Hey, I'm glad I'm not coming after him. He's a tough act to follow.
He's a great guy. I've known P. Allen Smith before he had the P. He was just Allen. And I have known him for so long, and I have beat up on him to come on the radio show. And he's finally agreed. I'm really, really excited. And I think he's trying to get another show syndicated, so we'll find out what that's all about. Again, Ryan, thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. And congratulations on the show and on...
How about my grant?
On everything that's going on at Dreamland. Yeah, the grant and on Up in Your Business and on Flag and Banner. We appreciate you. You're an asset to the community. And thanks for doing this show.
Well, thank you very much.
You're
welcome. Listen, I want to again tell everybody a big shout out to Centennial Bank and thank them again for sponsoring Dancing into Dreamland. This year, November the 2nd, they're our sponsor. Thank you very much. And I want to say if you've got a great entrepreneurial story that you would like to share, I'd love to hear from you. Send a brief bio or your contact information to.
That would be,
questions. With an S.
With an S at upyourbusiness.org.
And finally, to our listeners, thank you for spending time with me and Ryan and Chris. My hope today is that you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
You've been listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. If you miss any part of the show or want to learn more about UIYB, go to flagandbanner.com and click on Radio Show, or subscribe to her weekly podcast wherever you like to listen. All interviews are recorded and posted the following week with links to resources you heard discussed on today's show. And Kerry's goal is to help you live the American dream.